It's Wednesday, October 2nd, 2019. What a wild day on the stock market today. Dow Jones down almost 500 points. Dow finished down 494 points in the negative. You know, what's really interesting is everything literally was down today. I believe maybe Johnson & Johnson was up. Everything got decimated except gold and silver. Gold right now is outperforming the stock market year to date. Silver outperforming the stock market year to date. Last October, gold was around $1,184 to around $1,200. Right now today, as I come to you this evening, gold is hovering around $1,502, back up above $1,500, down from the peak around 1550 a couple weeks ago. But are we going to see it surge again back up to 1550, getting up to 1600? It's yet to be determined. But right now, year to date, if you bought gold last year, right now to this day, you're up well over 20%, probably around 24%. Silver, October 2nd of 2018, silver was $14.65 on this day a year ago. Today, it is hovering around $17.60. Even though we were at 1960, they smashed it, brought it back down. It is still outperforming the stock market. Right now, year to date, you are up around 20% on silver. And remember, you're not holding paper, you're holding the real physical asset. Dow Jones year to date right now, from what I was able to find, is about 11.8%. And remember, this is with all the manipulation, all the rigging, all the corporate buybacks, the whole Ponzi scheme, the complete illusion. And the best they can do is 11.8%. Gold and silver, on the other hand, have been manipulated, but they've been manipulated in the opposite direction, being slammed down. Yet they're still outperforming the stock market. You still can't beat gold and silver as the two most undervalued assets on the planet. And remember, nothing bad has happened yet, and they're still outperforming the stock market. Wait till things start getting very bumpy. Wait till big problems hit these markets and hit this economy, as we're starting to see the cracks. Again, as I've said in the past, don't buy gold and silver hoping to make a lot of money next week or next month. You buy it, you put it away, you don't think about it. I don't care if silver goes up $1, down $1. I don't care if gold goes up 100 or down 100. You are buying these things to hedge against the debt. This is insurance. This is to protect your wealth. You're buying these metals to protect you. And when times get bad, when they lose control of these markets, when reality comes back into these markets, you are going to see gold and silver go to numbers unheard of. And in fact, I don't even know if we can at that point even measure gold and silver in dollars. I mean, is somebody going to sell their gold or sell their silver for a paper currency? The two most undervalued assets in the world right now will be the most sought after, most expensive assets in the world when these markets collapse. Estimated GDP growth for the third quarter 2019. Morgan Stanley earlier predicted 2.1% growth. They've now downgraded that to 1.5%. The New York Fed originally predicted third quarter GDP growth to be 2.24%. They've downgraded that to 2.04%. The Atlanta Fed predicted 1.9%. They've upgraded to 2.1% growth. Macroeconomic advisors predicted 2.1% growth in the third quarter GDP, downgrading that to 1.6%. So we're seeing more indicators telling us that things are not about to get better anytime soon. They are weakening, and you better be preparing. Let's talk about maybe some of the reasoning of why we saw such a chaotic day in the markets today. Dow Jones down almost 500 points. Disappointing ADP job print. It came in below what they had forecasted. Europe was a bloodbath. UK's FTSE crashed today, dropping 3.2%. US markets rocked today by transports. This is another bad sign of what's happening in the retail sector. Barge, freight, airplane, railroad, everything across the board is getting decimated. Again, transports are down 5% just this week. Another telltale sign that the consumer is not spending like they once were. Credit markets are cracking wider. 10-year yields fell back below 1.6%. I saw the 10-year earlier today. I don't know what it got down to, but at one point I saw it at 1.59%. I think it's probably hovering around 1.6, somewhere in that neighborhood right now. The 3-month and 10-year remain inverted. I don't know what more we can tell people in order to wake them up. The indicators are alive and well. The canary in the coal mine is warning each and every one of you to be preparing. Again, when you see precious metals surging like they did today, people were running to bonds, they're running to gold, they're running to silver. Dollar was down, so they weren't running to cash for whatever reason. But tomorrow we'll see what happens. If we have another repeat of today, if they try to get things back up and running and the dollar becomes stronger, we will see. U.S. manufacturing right now, this is another reason why we are seeing what we're seeing in these markets. A couple bad days now, 343 points the day yesterday. So we've lost over 800 points in 48 hours. And one of the things I believe that is really to be blamed here is manufacturing. Our manufacturing sector is now in recession. We've had 2 contractions, and I believe this is causing huge problems in these markets. And also, we are continuing to inject billions of dollars into the U.S. banks. The warnings are all over the place. The writing is on the wall. Make sure you are preparing. I would be very cautious if I were in these markets. I would be very cautious if I was to be buying real estate right now. Bond bubbles, real estate bubbles, stock market bubbles. The grenades are all over the floor. Be very aware of where you are stepping. As I sit here and just think a little bit, we're in the midst of the China trade war. Our farmers in massive trouble in the Midwest, food shortages taking place, auto industry, the UAW on strike, 48,000 General Motor workers not working, the retail apocalypse that is taking place, the 7 million people who are 90 days plus delinquent on their auto loans. We're starting to see cracks in the real estate market, commercial real estate. I see big problems in my area as of right now. The problems just continue to worsen. Bed Bath & Beyond announced today it will be closing up to 60 stores by the end of this year. We saw transport rock this week, down 5%. So what is the good news that is going to push these markets back up, other than more manipulation, maybe a tweet that China trade discussions are going well? I just don't get it. I'm even shocked that we are where we are at today, even hovering above 26,000 points. These markets should have been rocked even harder today, and they should be rocked even harder tomorrow. But more than likely, that won't happen because the Fed is on standby. The Fed is going to give us another rate cut this month. Remember, things are so good, ladies and gentlemen. The economy is doing so well that the Fed not only cut in September, they're going to have to cut again in October, and more than likely they're going to have to cut in December to suck everybody into Christmas shopping. Right now, this economy is hanging on by the consumer. The consumer is the last-ditch effort to keep this economy alive, to keep these markets going. They're going to put this on you, and in order for the consumer to keep kicking the can down the road here with this economy, they're going to have to make sure that the consumer has plenty of credit and can borrow more money and get farther into debt, acquiring more debt, getting deeper and deeper into being the debt slave that they already are. This whole economy now is on the back of the consumer. We don't manufacture anything here. We don't make anything. We're not producing anything other than consumers who acquire more debt and consume more garbage. So this is where you're at. These are the markets you are in. Be very aware and very cautious of where we are at right now. This whole thing is reliant on the dumbed down, over debt consumer who now is holding up and propping up this economy. So as I mentioned earlier, hiring gains definitely had an effect on the markets today. And when we look at the hiring gains, ADP said here on Zero Hedge, employment disappoints, suffers drastic downturn revisions. And what I get from this article is get ready to expect a uptick in unemployment. It says here from ADP, we were expecting 145,000, we got 135,000. August jump of 195,000 was revised. So the numbers from August with 195,000 jobs was revised drastically lower to 157,000. Vice President of ADP, Ahu Yildimiraz, the job market has shown signs of a slowdown. Average monthly job growth for the past 3 months is 145,000, down from the 214,000 for the same period last year. So that's pretty drastic. And here's another problem too that nobody wants to talk about. We don't want to talk about the hundreds of billions of dollars of injections that continue to go on, but nobody wants to talk about the U.S. gross national debt jumping by $1.2 trillion in the fiscal year of 2019. We're now at $22.7 trillion in debt. Ladies and gentlemen, that means your country, my country, is bankrupt. We added $110 billion on the last 2 business days of the fiscal year of 2019. This is a huge problem, and I know that nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody on the business shows, none of the analysts talk about it, and nobody is really talking about the effect and the negative ramifications this is going to have down the road here in America, and it's affecting us right now. Remember, we're in the good times right now. This debt is getting overloaded. What happens during the bad times when we're carrying this massive amount of debt? And you have to ask yourself that question personally too. If you're carrying a lot of debt right now, what is going to happen to you during the bad times? What happens is it's going to be very, very hard to stay afloat. Just like the United States of America is going to have a very difficult time staying afloat when the interest on the debt is going to be so enormous that it's going to be impossible to sustain. Like many households in America carrying too much debt, is going to be impossible to sustain, and you're going to get yourself in a really, really bad place. Make sure that you're being conservative right now. Make sure that you're not living beyond your means. Live conservative right now. The sales are coming. This is the time to hunker down, save cash, make sure you have hard assets, make sure you have security, preps, everything, because I truly believe we are going to see very, very harsh economic times here in America, and nobody is going to be immune from them. I was reading an article earlier today, and it had some highlights of 2019 and the economy, and want to go over them with you, just a few of them. Stock market has reached all-time highs in 2019, but remember, it did it with low rates, and it did it with corporate buybacks. Real estate prices reached all-time highs in 2019, but it did it with the help of subprime loans and low rates. And they're continuing to push these rates down to sucker the average dumbed-down American into the housing market right now. They know it's going to implode. They're bringing everybody to the poker table, everybody to the roulette table, because they want to get every last dollar out of the U.S. dumbed-down citizen before they know the whole house of cards comes tumbling down, and the house will win. Corporate profits at record highs, but remember, corporate debt is at all-time highs also. And let's not forget, corporate buybacks help to make this happen. Personal income is at a record high, but personal debt is at a record high. And I have to argue this one when 50% of the country makes less than $32,000 a year. They might be making more than they were 10 years ago, but when you add in inflation, people are making less than they were back in the early 70s. Unemployment is hovering at all-time lows. We have nearly 100 million people not in the workforce right now, and we have 21.3% of people here in America on government assistance. And the people who are working for Uber, Lyft, Starbucks, service sector jobs. You know, the biggest sector we have in America now is not manufacturing, it's service sector jobs. You know, the jobs that pay $10, $12, maybe $15 an hour. It says here we did not have a banking crisis, although right now here in 2019, we're injecting hundreds of billions of dollars into our banks. Right now, we have a mountain of debt and it's getting bigger. We're at $22.7 trillion of debt. Your country is now bankrupt. How long will people pretend that the world's biggest debtor is simultaneously the world's biggest superpower? Are we really that powerful? When we're broke, when we're bankrupt, when our infrastructure is falling apart, when we have homeless people everywhere, when we have a drug epidemic, when we're having an invasion taking place here in America, our school system's falling apart, are we really the superpower that everybody thinks we are? How much longer will these financial markets and foreign governments continue to lend money to the US government at these trivial interest rates? And we have another rate cut coming this month. I'm going to go at this point right now, 97.5% we will get a rate cut in October. If we have another bad day tomorrow, I'm going all in at 100%. Interest on the debt in 2019, get this, just to pay, and people just believe that this debt doesn't exist or it doesn't matter. We paid $540 billion just on US debt. You don't need a PhD in economics to realize that this whole thing is not going to end well. If you are not preparing right now, I talked to somebody today that believes that, you know, if you haven't prepared over the last couple of years, you're not going to be able to be prepared. Listen, don't use that as an excuse. We don't know if this thing blows up a week from now, a year from now, 3 years from now, 3 weeks from now. We don't know. But right now, today was another opportunity that you could have went out and prepared. You could have worked on your security. You could have went and bought a couple ounces of silver, bought an ounce of gold, stockpiled a couple dollars of cash, put it away, and make sure that everything you have is not sitting in a bank or in a safety deposit box in a bank. Make sure that your physical assets, your cash is somewhere where you can get to it. If we see a bailout, a bail-in, if the doors get locked at your bank, you're in big trouble. If we see some type of grid problem, if we see cyber attacks, you do not want to be reliant or standing in a line for the bank to give you money. And remember, there is not that much cash sitting in your bank. You're lucky if your bank has $10,000 or $15,000 of cash sitting in it at one time. Most banks probably don't even have that much. So be your own bank, be your own central bank, and have your cash, your gold, your silver, your security in places that you can access in a time of emergency. Ask yourself, what happens when this great economy is over, when the sun stops shining? What happens when they lose control of these markets? What happens if a black swan event happens tomorrow? What happens when reality comes back to these markets? What happens when reality comes to America? Are you prepared? You don't need to have been preparing last year or 5 years ago. What matters is that right now, today, you get off your butt and you get prepared mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. At some point, these videos are going to change. They're going to be talking about what has just happened. Right now, we're talking about what is about to happen, what is going to happen in the future. At some point, we won't be talking about the future because we're going to be living it. We've seen what economic collapse have done around the world. We see what currency collapses do. We see what's happening in Venezuela. We see what's happening all over the world in third world countries. And, you know, my heart goes out to those people in Hong Kong fighting for freedom, fighting for democracy, while we sit here in America and take everything for granted. Does the average American have any fight left? Does the average American really even care about this country? Most of them don't, but I know you do and I do. And at some point, that's all that matters. We've got to stop worrying about what everybody else thinks of us, what everybody else is doing. It's about what we're doing right now as people who love this great country, people who are not going to just stand by, give up, be a victim physically, be a victim financially. We are here. We're going to fight through this. We're going to survive it. We're going to prosper. And we're going to thank God that He put us here in America, on this earth, for this time. God bless every one of you. Thanks for watching. Share this video with everybody. We still have a duty to our fellow Americans to do the best that we can to wake up everybody and save them from what's coming. God bless you.